The Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is brought to you by Compton Group, a specialist recruitment agency working in the metal, manufacturing and engineering sectors. Hey guys, Pete and Mike.
The Metal Guys.
We're joined by Dan and Joe today. We've done no prep for this. This is the most relaxed podcast.
I'm going to say that our podcast is anyway.
No. There's normally quite a lot of organisation.
Do you not tell that we go for the corporate vibe on our podcast?
I even do a corporate voice normally.
People think there's a new guest.
I was expecting a script.
Yeah.
No, is it literally nothing, mate? How long have you both been with KR Saws?
Well, I've been at KR Saws now for 7 years. On my sales journey, I was supplying a company called NDT. I met my mate Dan along the way.
5 years now, so I've been with the company 5 years. So I was a customer for KL Saws, and like Joe said, I worked in the NDT industry, worked for a company called Intertech over in Derby. Invited Joe in. Joe came in, we did some trials, it was successful, and ever since then became a customer, and then close friends.
Best mates.
Best mates, what is it, BMF or whatever it is, best mates forever.
Yeah.
So I've been with the company 5 years, Joe's been with the company 7 years.
How come you've been here so long? I know that if there'll be people listening going, that in a long time, 7 or 5 years, but considering you're very young, there's a stigma sometimes that people of a certain age, like me for an example, 2.5 year stints. So there's obviously, 5 year plans, yeah.
It's been noticed.
But you've obviously brought into KR Saws for 7 years and 5 years, and you've got, from obviously having a look around today and talking to people, so obviously a pretty stable workforce, isn't it? What do you think that is?
Down to the company structure, I think. It's just, you've got the opportunity to speak to Paul, the MD, then just a few minutes ago. He's very easygoing, very fair. Don't get me wrong, I think we're both, or everyone within the team's quite self-driven. We have our own areas that we look after, and I suppose when like anything, as long as you're bringing the work in and they're ticking the right boxes, it's all systems go. But I think the biggest thing is just such a fair company to work for.
People have never heard of KR Saws. I know it's hard to believe.
Yep.
What do you actually do?
Well, we're owned by two manufacturers of saw blades. The K stands for Kinkelder, and they're a Dutch manufacturer of circular saw blades, specialising in HSS and carbide tip circular saw blades. And then we've got Röntgen, that's what the R stands for. They're a German manufacturer, and they specialise in bimetal and carbide bandsaw blades.
Is it only in the UK that there's a KR Saws with that partnership, or have they got that partnership in other areas of the world?
No, we're the only joint venture in the whole world. Kinkelder and Röntgen came together 18 years ago now.
And it's almost like there's three of you.
Yeah, it's
like the three of us.
Power of three.
Yeah, the power of three. The power of three adds up.
Power of three. Is that part of the push?
That's it. That's a new corporate logo.
Yeah, so how did that happen? Because it seems like quite an unusual setup. I mean, it obviously works because one does one does the other. Happy days. But it does seem a bit strange. I've not seen it in any other business setup before.
The two products come hand in hand because when you go to a fabricator, for example, they'll often have a bandsaw machine cutting big steel beams, and then in the corner they might have a circular saw cutting tube. Often many companies have both, so the products work together, but they also don't clash because you've not got one competing with the other, if that makes sense. So we can do both products at the same time and offer a full package to the customer.
Is it not typical, again, I might be a complete noob here, but do other companies produce both, as in manufacturers? Would they do both circular and your bandsaws?
No, what makes us unique is because we're owned by them, there's nobody else in the UK actually owned by the manufacturers of the saw blades. All of our competitors are distributors for saw blade manufacturers. So it's good, and it can be bad, but it's normally good, is because if the customer doesn't like our product, fortunately they're never going to like the product because we only sell Kinkelder and Röntgen, whereas other distributors of blades can sell whoever's blade they want.
Does it make life of doing BD easier when you're working on behalf of a manufacturer? Can you be a bit more technical? Can you kind of solve issues on a bespoke basis for your clients?
Yeah, definitely. How it helps is when it comes to research and development in Germany and in Holland, we liaise with them. So we'll do some testing, and then when the blade comes off and it's finished, whether it's worn or it's broken, if it's a bandsaw blade, we can send it back to Röntgen or back to Kinkelder, and they can do some research and development. Why is this blade worn? Why is the carbide tip broken? But we work hand in hand with them. But also, if we've got a customer who needs a specific product, we're able to work with them to reduce those lead times.
Okay, because often you've got machinery downstairs. It's a pretty big site. What have you got in-house?
So with the bandsaw blades, we buy the coiling from Röntgen, and then the operators will go and pick the coil, cut it to length, And then the next operation, it goes to somebody else, the welders, who then weld the blade. And then they'll clean off the weld, make sure it's flat and make sure it's in the best condition it can be, the welds. They test the welds and then it's packing. The HSS, we've got vans that go around the country collecting blades for resharpening. So we offer that in-house as well. And then when customers order new blades, they also go onto the same machines and they regrind the teeth into the blade and that goes out as a new product.
You know, like with a blade manufacturing, say, Dan, for you, you know, when you're speaking to people who are operation managers, procurement managers, MDs, owning the business, whatever it may be, obviously everyone's worried about the price of material, you know, whether it's a tube, a column, a beam that you may be cutting. I'd imagine the blade, I wouldn't say not value, but they may not think of a way of looking at that as that process. If I'm listening today and I'm thinking to myself, right, yeah, actually we've got 10 castos, bearingers, whatever it may be, what's the benefits of looking into why I should have certain blades?
I think when you look at some of our product range, you're talking 700 to 800 different types of product consisting of different types of metal strip from M51 to M42. So obviously the benefits of these, like anyone in the tooling industry knows that certain tools will cut certain materials. Gone are the days when I first started in the industry, say you could wish you could have just one tool that cut everything. I mean, even from a machining background, machining material, you know, gone are the days where you just got one tip that did everything. It's got that advance now where, you know, so I say, no, you're not just going to continue inventing the wheel again, like, but they are, you know, the innovation that's going through at Brunscon, the mini Ankenkeld is just unbelievable. We've brought a new tool out that's cutting tall steel that we're achieving double blade life against anyone else within the industry. It's like anything else, it'll always come down to price. Someone who's buying the blade, who wants it the cheapest, but you've got someone on our operators in point of view that wants the best, regardless of the cost. So you've got that constant back and forward. So I personally try and talk to the operators first to see what they gauge in, and then obviously then we do the project there and start talking to the buyers.
Is that standard that people do projects? So obviously I've been out with you guys last year. I spent a bit of time with you, went out to a few sites, learned a little bit more about blades, because I always thought, you know, a blade's a blade, like it runs, then it breaks, because they all break eventually, and then you just replace it. I didn't realise, again, naively, I didn't realise it was quite so tech. But what's it like to kind of, if you're trying to sell based on the tech that you're talking about, how do you get out of that mindset of just what I've said, a blade, it's just a blade, mate, and it runs, it breaks, and I get a new one? Why would you bother spending the time talking to you about it and finding out about these potential benefits that you're alluding to?
From my background, so I did a Sigma qualification, which is basically analysing data. So my approach on a project, for example, is to get the data of the original tool, understand it, measure it, and then put our tool on and do exactly the same and prove it on there, because we're not the cheapest product. It's a premium product. Here's my sales chip now. We're a premium product, but it's for us to prove using Sigma or even data to prove that is the case. So we've done a lot of projects in the past and just use that Sigma approach of proving with data that we've got a better tool life.
Is it getting easier to do that as well? Because again, with you being 5-7 years in, there's always change in the industries. Are people getting more used to going, actually, we want those analytics, or is it still quite a hard sell?
Our target market has been the stainless steel industry for many years and the nickel alloys. When you're cutting that, it obviously comes with its own complications, just the nature of the material. But you find that bigger stockholders that cut this material have to start measuring. It's changing definitely over the last 5 years since I've been here. A lot more people are measuring what they're doing. They want to be cutting quicker, cutting more efficient. So in general, the whole industry, I think, is changing. You've got obviously the biggest factor that we'll probably talk about a little bit more depth with COVID that kicked in. So doing projects was hard in the first place, but COVID kicked in, stopped seeing people. Our jobs completely changed overnight. I'm sure you guys seen that effect as well. So we've gone from, you know, getting on site, doing the project, where people want having you on site.
When you're identifying the people you want to speak to, obviously we see it from, say, just a recruitment point of view when you're trying to speak to a HR manager, and people in big groups might be doing recruitment every month because people are coming and going. What's it like when you're trying to build a relationship with someone who's looking at a blade? For example, what we're looking here, you know, obviously operation managers aren't necessarily sat there at a desk, are they? They're on site, they're walking around the factories. They might have multi-sites, so they're not always at one location. So what's the kind of process of the business development for something that isn't just, you know, if you do material sales, your procurement manager's predominantly got a team, and he's got someone who's perhaps sat at a desk?
Personally, I think the biggest thing for me to see the change, especially over the last 2 years, is LinkedIn. Your target market was taken away. The gatekeeper as a receptionist, you wouldn't have that opportunity now and going knocking on the door, looking at the gatekeeper on the receptionist, trying to get the person who's responsible for buying whatever, whether it be. In our situation with saw blades, you didn't have that no more. That had gone. That was taken away from you because you weren't allowed to do site visits. As a sales team, me and Joe, we had to understand how we could create opportunities without going knocking on people's doors. And I think that's when LinkedIn really taken on force and it became a different animal. LinkedIn was all about jobs. It was like a job fair for me when I first went on LinkedIn. Now people are using LinkedIn to communicate with people. They're using it as a sales feature, but also using it to understand people's roles and what people do within the business. LinkedIn, to me, has changed so much. It's become such a powerful tool, and yeah, we've been quite successful with it.
At what point do you think you've seen a difference in that? I think you're right. I was never on LinkedIn before Compton Group, and I think when I went on it, it was just a load of people like me and Pete, for recruiters at that particular time in our journey. At what point do you feel like you started to think this has changed? And when you both perhaps spoke to each other, what was that kind of moment when you thought you'd identified a change on the platform?
Well, after COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah, me personally was, because we know the industry is the industry, yeah? Stockholders are stockholders. And I think when I realised how much it's changed is when people within the industry started using it as well as. So the people that you know, we'll not mention names because of the podcast, but we know certain people within the industry, they started using LinkedIn as well. So you could start communicating, and it became like that dark room where all you needed was a bit of internet. You could actually communicate with people without going 450 miles down south to go and communicate with someone. And everyone started using it. Everyone used LinkedIn now. You know, all these major players, all these major stockholders, they are using LinkedIn exactly how we're using it. Whether we like it or not, we're obsessed with social media. And social media has taken over so much in the last 2 years, and it's not just your kids that are obsessed with TikTok. It's people, me in my 40s, that are obsessed with communicating with people and making it the most easiest and dynamic way you can do it. Gone are the days where you, like I say, you jump in your car and you got 10 cold calls a day to do, go and knock on doors. People don't want to see you. People don't want to talk to you, but people will want to talk to you through LinkedIn. It's bizarre. It's crazy.
Do you suffer from any of these problems? Are you asking around your office trying to find a new supplier or source materials? Have you got aged or high-priced stock that you'd like to liquidate anonymously? Or would you like new business from customers that are guaranteed to pay you for your materials? If the answer to any of the above is yes, then you'll be pleased to know that the Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is sponsored by SteelBuy. SteelBuy are a digital platform revolutionising the way businesses trade metal products online. SteelBuy offers risk-free trading where sellers are guaranteed to be paid, and automated processing including certification, logistics and invoicing. The network of vetted buyers and sellers is continually growing, and it's all housed in an easy-to-use trading platform accessible on any device. The online business-to-business marketplace for products is rapidly gathering pace, and SteelBuy are ideally positioned to capture the changing demands of steel buyers. So check out SteelBuy today and be part of the future of metal trading. Now let's jump back into the podcast. The thing about you boys is you're regularly out and you're doing BD, you're building those relationships, you're actually fixing things, advising, consulting, you're doing quite a lot of different stuff. You know, when I get out on the road, I will go and knock on doors. People don't do it anymore. If I see a company that I know, I'll just buzz in and see if I'll say I've got an appointment. And people just let you in. Do you still do that? Going in and walking in and creating opportunities by just going into other buildings, or are you doing as Dan saying, you just going, actually, everyone's on social, so I'll just do that?
I'm at the minute knocking on doors. So if I'm going around and I'm on an industrial estate, I will go around, and if there's a few people who I think might be using saw blades, I'll go knock on the door, introduce myself, give a card and try and get some details of whoever it is, or try and meet them. But when I first started 7 years ago, it was literally put a pin in a map, and that's where I'm going today. You'd drive to, I don't know, Cambridge, and then you'd do a bit of Google work, try and see Google steel fabricator in Cambridge, and you try and just go around and do it that way. But now with fuel prices going up and trying to use my time more effectively, you can even do things now where I can just go on Google Maps, pick up me little yellow man in the corner, drop him on an industrial estate, walk him around the industrial estate, and then call the company. to make sure that if I do drive down there, it's worth doing.
You're giving the trick of the trade here, Jack.
Is that no? But like we do it as well. We literally drop it on an industrial estate, and you literally have a look round. I've got to be honest. This is just my opinion. I think people are getting really lazy with their BD. Really, really lazy because there's so many tools that you can use. And I think getting out, because of COVID, you guys still had to go out.
People don't like rejection though, do they?
I just think a lot of it is to do with time management. You can be a busy fool. So you can drive 250 miles, do 11 calls and get absolutely nothing from it. So like Joe says, for me to do that, I have to have a meeting that's been set up. I've got a meeting set up. Let's have a look where that is. So time management is actually there. So I'm driving there anyway, so I can do 5 calls from there. I'll try and ring ahead, try to talk to them, see if I can make an appointment. Because we sell a consumable tool that's a throwaway tool. A saw blade you use once, realistically, you take it off the machine, you dispose of it. From being in that industry, there is so many people that use these saw blades. Is it worth that call? Someone uses 10 blades a year. Is it worth me driving 250 miles to go and knock on the door? Probably not. But if I use LinkedIn or social media and contact them through that way, I think that's going to be the answer there all the time. Again, just through time management. And again, like Joe said, because fuel's increasing now. We've both changed our cars now. We're both on hybrids, but it's still expensive to run.
What successes do you think you've had off LinkedIn? Obviously, we should both see both of you doing your videos and kind of pushing things.
When we first started LinkedIn, obviously we needed to understand what do we want to get out of LinkedIn. And my first thing that I said to Joe was, I want people to know Dan at KR Saws sells saw blades. As simple as that. And the amount of inquiries now where people are contacting us now going, I've seen your stuff through LinkedIn. I'm impressed with what you do. Can you come and...
Did they say that? Did they say, I'm really impressed with what you do?
No, not really. All you just do is saying, listen, we've got a problem with
So impressive,
our existing supplier. Is there any chance you could come in and have a look at what we're doing? And yeah, that's happened. That's happened quite a lot.
Because of the impressiveness.
No, I just think we're doing it a little bit different. I have to be careful, Seb, and I know we've broached this before. We're the young guys within our industry. Yeah, in our industry, there's I'd say there's five people within the UK that sell saw blades. And 4 out of 5 of them companies are companies that are quite old, the older guys that are working there. And I just think that by our approach of it, we offer that something a little bit different. We're thinking outside the box. And LinkedIn was to the stage where we started thinking out of the box. How are we going to come, or how are we over going to come? COVID's, it's affected everyone.
Well, I remember having a conversation with you in COVID. We first, because obviously I met you at the British Stainless Steel Association in 2019, the back end. And then COVID happened in like March 2020. And then we had a conversation, didn't we? When we were just getting back to the office, which was around June 2020, must have been. And you were obviously trying to, at that stage, I reckon it was around, you might have been doing stuff before, but it was about trying to push an online presence, wasn't it? Of what you were trying to get out of it, how are you doing your videos, what you're trying to do. Was that probably around the time that you would kind of...
Yeah, I mean, that would have been the time. I mean, and again, back in that time, you told me what external sales guy or person wasn't worried about their job. I literally thought then, how are we going to do our job? How are we going to justify my boss paying us to be on the road, to be going around knocking on doors to try and get, business improvement? I personally feared that I'd lose my job because the simple fact is we didn't have the resources to do it, because you couldn't go onto site. Even your existing customers, if they got a problem, they couldn't have you on site because you weren't allowed on site.
Both of you, from putting a lot out there, if you grew your network and it's a better network that you've got, because obviously a lot of people when they use socials can have people they used to go to school with, they've got their friends who aren't in the industries but they're on the LinkedIns. Actually, people in the industry sector, is that grew and you've seen actually more influential kind of people in decisions to buy your products are following you?
Yeah, massively, because when I first started using LinkedIn, I saw it as a tool to find a new job. That's how people used to use LinkedIn. And it's grown from that, as you touched on earlier, to now people use it to showcase themselves, to showcase their company, and show people what they can do on a free platform. All it takes is a bit of time and effort to actually go about doing them. And you can reach out to people within minutes and seconds. And then you start to get more of a presence, you start to become more confident, you start to understand the algorithms behind LinkedIn and what times to post and what to say and what makes people interested. If I just put a picture of a saw blade and says, look, here's my saw blade, come and buy from me, that's not going to reach out to anybody, is it?
Does that not work?
No, believe it or not, it doesn't buy.
Obviously, Paul and Andy, who are obviously running the business.
Well, the older ones.
Yeah, like obviously they're of a certain generation where social media, they'd just say that's new to them. They've never had to do it. You know, they've got the names, they've got the day book, they're speaking to people, they're building real strong relationships where they go out, have a few beers, people have a curry, and go out and get the order at the end of the night, whatever. So obviously, when you two are looking to push KR saws out, you stick videos out of your warehouse and your facilities. You have videos where you're in the car. You've had videos where you've done case studies for clients. How did they feel about it? Because I'd imagine there must have been an element where going, we've got to trust two lads now who we respect in the business. But equally, they might get this fucking wrong.
Yeah. There was an element of where everyone, and I mean everyone, whether if he was a 10-year-old child or someone who was in their 80s, where during COVID, people again had to change the way they were communicating. I mean, you'd think that on a Saturday evening, you'd have your whole family round doing a Zoom call, you know, and I think
I've embraced that.
Exactly. And I think
it's amazing. It's just a think meeting, Why don't I get a crap cooking? So, you know, it's amazing.
How many people did quizzes with the family? And I
didn't.
Did you not? I did them. Oh, mate, I did about 10. And then I think on the 11th one, I just turned around and went, we can't do this now.
Because Pete's dad's an egghead, he was a key worker.
Yeah. I did the Centurion and then I was sick at home on my own. Online, you know, online with a load of other people. Never done that. You do 100 shots of beer in 100 minutes. It doesn't sound like it's too much, but I did it, yeah. And I was sick. I was on my own at home, and I remember sat by the bowl and thinking, "What's going wrong with my life? What's going on?"
Is that
with
when
it?
you stopped drinking for a year?
No. I carried on for it.
Yeah, carried on. Yeah, he went crazy. It was on for 6 weeks. But how did they feel about having to go down this different approach? What we spoke about there, the platform's changed. LinkedIn was about getting a job. And at that point, as Dan's just said, he was concerned about his job. So actually trying to create a personal brand for yourself at a point where you're scared about your job, you're sticking yourself out there in twofold. One, you've got the business of interest and you're trying to do it. But secondly, you're like, I might need a job. And so I might as well be on a platform full of recruiters. And if I'm a business owner, I'm looking at it for twofold there, going, well, actually, that could be an issue. And we're sticking everything out about KR Saws, and you two lads are obviously about your career and trying to push it. So how did those conversations go?
It's trying to get Paul and Andy themselves and everyone else at KR Saws to understand why we were doing it. So why are we doing videos, and do we really need to be going on LinkedIn?
What worried? What's the hashtag? Worried kids.
Yeah, what's the hashtag?
What's his hashtag, mate? And we was having, at first we got quite a bit of stick because we was having machine manufacturers contacting them saying, why are they doing this? Sometimes it was like, you know, climbing over a brick wall. You know, we're literally, listen, please stick with us. We know what we're doing. We see the likes of you guys doing it. We see other people touching on doing it, not to the limits where we was doing it, but we understood it from a marketing point of view. We understood it from a business point of view, but from a commercial point of view as well as. There was no hidden agenda. It was just simple. It was a simple thing we did. And in the last, I'd say definitely in the last 3 or 4 months, we've had some decent recognition for it from the company's owners. They listen and say, listen, we've got to say these guys are doing well. What they're doing is good. So the feedback we've now eventually had, just to let you know, chaps, I've had some good feedback from our owners saying that you're doing a great job.
Well, they went to the Tube Show, and when they went over to the Tube Show, they said that they love what we're doing on social media, pushing the brand, but certainly Kinkelder, because Kinkelder were there at the time, and Röntgen also recognise what we're doing. So I go on sites now, I go to different companies, and I went to one in Reddish, and the guy went, I recognise you from LinkedIn. You're on LinkedIn all the time, aren't you? And I've had that a few times. You had a customer.
Your mate. Your mate. Can I say his name? Well, you don't need to mismanage, but basically it was one of your mates that came up to us. We was at the expo, and he came up to Joe, even though I'd been running the project, came up to Joe and says, yeah, doing a great job. I've put you in contact with someone else. And I'm like, it's not even him. It's me.
To win back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but that's the benefit of it. What was the concern points then? What was, from their point, you know, obviously they didn't know what an hashtag is. What was they scared of?
They were scared because of relationships. So we've got a very good relationship with ProSaw, and if we go put in a picture of a competitor's saw on, it wouldn't look very good. It could affect the relationship with ProSaw, and that was the main concern from their point of view, because we've got a very good relationship.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was just not understanding. They didn't understand at all. They didn't know. They didn't understand how it was growing for an advertisement point of view. Again, they just thought it was this job thing that people just went on to get jobs and put themselves out there. LinkedIn's changed so much over the last 5 years. It's unbelievable. And it's not just our industry.
You know, there are people who are using socials, and as I said, kind of alluded to earlier, I think people are getting a bit lazy, like hiding behind emails, hiding behind using social channels, hiding behind dropping messages and DMs to people, and not picking the phone up. Again, because you guys are going out, I'm guessing that you've got a little bit more confidence to still pick the phone up to people. Is that something that you're still doing, and not just going, actually, we'll just go wholly on socials? Realistically, not everyone that you want to be talking to, especially some of the key decision makers, not everyone's on there. Not everyone's on there regularly. So how are you still making sure you've got a mix so that your business development isn't just being affected because you're going, oh, well, we're just going to go for not the low-hanging fruit, but the stuff we can physically see?
Yeah, we're still making phone calls on a regular basis. I've made a few today. And then when we're going out on the road, if you've got a particular appointment, you make sure you're going to make time to go and knock on the door and go and see people. I think people still like face-to-face. I'm sure I did a poll on it not long ago. I'm sure the top one came out as a face-to-face appointment. People still want to see people. And I think that's important that we don't forget that. But at the same time, what you don't want is to be driving 100 miles down the road, like a lot of my customers are 100 miles plus, and get in there and you get rejected and they go, oh, sorry, I haven't got time actually to see you today. Or they'll say, such and such is off, so I've got to cover. Because that's the other thing that happened when COVID kicked off. A lot of people were furloughed. And what that did was create new jobs for the existing staff that were there. And a lot of those people have continued with those jobs. So people have gone from doing whatever their job role was, it's in operations, and then they're doing additional bits in the meantime as well. Just making sure that before you set off, that appointment is set in stone, and then going down there and then doing your other calls as well. It's still really important to go face to face.
The Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is sponsored by TW Metals. TW Metals are a stockholder and distributor of nickel alloy, aluminium, titanium and stainless steel products in a range of forms, including tube, bar, pipe, extrusion, as well as sheet and plates. They have sites located in the UK, Europe, the USA and Southeast Asia, and are the largest supplier of aerospace tubes globally. With a whole host of accreditations and in-house processing capabilities, they are the first choice for OEMs, tier 1s, fabricators and engineering companies across the world, and they're easy to deal with. I worked with them for many years, so I can recommend them. For more details, check out their website or even give them a call to chat about your requirements. Now let's get back to the pod.
I wanted to spin it now, move away from socials and talk about tech. You spoke about the technology or the technological advancements of the two brands that you're working with, and obviously pushing the faster cutting or higher quality or more precise cutting. I want to talk about machinery. How are you seeing the market over this last 5 years in terms of investments, and or what do you think is important for our industry sector from your eyes, from what you're seeing on the floor day to day?
You are seeing more and more people looking and starting to look at investments in automation, definitely, because I don't know if it's a right thing or not, but people want to look at doing things faster and more efficiently. And I think you're going to get a lot of people higher up who are going, well, we can't always rely on people. Whereas if we put an automated or machinery in, we can always rely on it. Yes, you do need somebody there to control it, but it's always going to work and it's always going to be quicker and it's going to be potentially more reliable.
It's like the human element out of it, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, which is not a good thing, I don't think, because I always prefer, obviously, it's not nice to see, one, people lose their jobs, and two, you're lowering the skill set of people because they're going to lose the skill of what the machines are doing. But it's definitely a route I think people will go down eventually. I don't know if we're seeing too much of it in the sawing game at the minute. And when you also look at people in the sawing industry, they'll spend loads of money on all these other automated machines, but after I find that a lot of companies will spend a bare minimum amount on a bandsaw machine because they see it as like the lower end of the process. It's just cutting a piece of metal. How hard can it be?
I mean, I think people are just doing it because I'm out a lot. And I went out and saw a customer the other day. They got 3 brand new saws in there, fresh out of the packet. And they've got 2 of them that are operating. And then the one of them, which was the bigger one, which I was immediately attracted to the larger one, they said, oh, we're having a problem with that because that should cut faster than the other 2 combined. We're having loads of problems with it. We can't get it moving, can't get it working properly. So I said, do you use you guys? They said they didn't, as it happened. And they said, yeah, so we're going to get the manufacturer to come back out. But they had the manufacturer out twice already. And they still weren't being able to get this thing working. In my opinion, it was because of the human element. It's people running potentially with the wrong blades, with the wrong saws, wrong speed and feeds, and all the stuff that you talk about. The reason I'm talking about this is the automation side. By automating these machines, like remember the guy we were at with Fanuc, the MD, when we were at Farnborough, and he was talking opposite to what you were saying, really, which was saying, by automating, you actually end up with more skilled workers working around the machinery because they need to be able to work with these automated processes and be able to almost multitask more effectively. And then they're only kind of picking up on faults or potential faults to make sure that the machines are running at their optimal capacities all the time. Whereas currently, companies are using whoever's operating those saws, and there might be multiple saws of different ages, of different brands, and not really getting the best out of them. So I think the question, very long-winded, is don't you think that by automating and actually having saws working more effectively because the skill set is higher, that's really where we should be going?
Yeah.
Rather than just relying on the human element when you can make these mistakes.
I think the industry is driving that anyway itself, isn't it? Because everyone's now is obsessed with lead times, aren't they? How many times people win business on the fact that the lead time is shorter than their other time? So 2 questions you ask when you're buying steel, obviously the price, which is obviously very important. But the second question is lead time. And now because these steel stockholders and these manufacturers of steel are so obsessed with it and winning business just on the simple factor that the lead time is 24 hours less than the other competitors, they'll win the business. So when you start looking at the CNC part of it, because gone are the days where a bandsaw machine was just 3 dials, now they're putting CNC equipment on it, so they're putting advanced computer systems on them. So the simple fact is you put a program in, push number 1, and it does it all for you. But they'll still need the technical side from us guys to understand what tool they need to put on, how fast that tool goes, and look at the speed and feeds from there. So I think the industry itself's changing it. I think the industry is being forced down the road of, we want to cut quicker because the simple fact is the sales team are going to get the order because of the lead times.
And is that where you're finding that you're getting good success, just being able to cut fast?
Yeah.
Or is it because, again, I might be a novice here, but just by cutting faster, what happens with the tolerances, or are the machines so good nowadays that you can cut faster than your blades can? Or are the machines so good now that your blades can cut, at the kind of required speeds?
Yeah, I might have misunderstood the automation question. I thought you were referring to like robotics and stuff like that. So
it could be, but yeah.
Okay, so if you're looking at automation, the sawing point of view, if you look at a circular saw now, you've got these automated circular saws that one circular saw can do the job of 13 bandsaws potentially. And this is where customers are winning more business, because rather than the lead time being 5 days, it's 1 week, 1 day. So there's definitely an advantage to these automated machines from that point of view. And because the tool is moving so fast, you definitely need skilled workers to know exactly what they're doing and know exactly what feeding speeds to put in, because if that is slightly incorrect and the machine's not been set up properly, then you're going to smash a blade up, or it's going to lose a teeth or something like that. So from that point of view, yeah, there is definitely room for more automation, and there's more and more of these machines being sold in the UK.
I mean, what's going on with some of the older equipment as well? Because I do see, again, there's a lot of old kit out there, but again, without trying to just upsell new kit all the time. Again, what's your thought process on using what was old quality kit as opposed to buying fresh new equipment?
So a lot of the new equipment, from a feed and speed point of view, all the operator needs to do is put his material in, his diameter in, and it'll set the feed and speeds, and we can set that, as in we can input what we believe is right, correct feed and speed rates. But also the manufacturer, the machines will put that in as well. So it actually makes the operator's job easier, and from there you can reduce lead times, or you can increase blade life, whatever the customer wants to try and achieve. But what we try and do now is try and get people to see the benefits in cutting faster, especially with energy prices going up. Because how we've always seen it is, if you were to cut the same material every week in, week out, exactly the same, and you could cut 20% faster, then you could have Friday off. You could just do all your work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then because you've cut 20% faster, you wouldn't need to come in on Friday. And that's one of the paths that we've always gone down in trying to encourage people to cut faster. So then you turn your machines off, you're going to save on energy, maybe overtime, and then you're reducing your lead times to the customers as well. But it's trying to convince people that they're not going to lose blade life and they're not going to spend more on blades. Yeah, you may spend a little bit more on blades because your blade life might come down slightly. The costs of that extra expensive blades, the savings you're making massively outweigh that, and it's trying to convince people, and that's why we collect data. And like Dan said earlier, we have to go in and collect data from what they're currently getting, collate all that information, say, right, this is where you're at, this is where we want to take you, and then that's where we come in and then try and do our stuff with our blades and try and get them from A to B, and that's where we hopefully win business.
You know, when you're in warehouses, distribution centres now, are you seeing a lot more kind of health and safety, you know, and people are a lot more aware than there was? Obviously, going through COVID times, it was the mask, there was separation, 2 meters. How was things like that?
Because obviously, I think me and Mike, we were chatting about this the other day, was like, your blades, they're pretty dangerous. With regard to health and safety, again, I know you've only been in that kind of sector for, say, 7 years, 5 years, but have you seen quite an uplift? Because I think people always assume that this sector is really backward and really slow to embrace change.
There's definitely been. I mean, my previous role was saw operator, where I looked after 5 saws. In the time I was in that role, they probably had a few rear door accidents. I think there was about 3 rear door accidents. One lad had chopped the end of his finger off. The machine manufacturers in general have changed their approach of it. There's certain safety buttons now on the machines that you can't close the vices and so on and so on. But yeah, it's definitely changed over the last 5 years and continually changing now. I think a lot of corporate companies, blue chip companies, big steel stockholders take it, you know, really, really seriously. But even looking at the smaller engineering companies, their different approach now through coolant. Some of them don't use coolant because the HSE frown upon it. So health and safety within our industries is improving. It's on the up. It's definitely not being ignored.
So you mentioned coolant, because obviously it's the answer's in the question. It cools it down. So how does that then affect your kind of cutting speeds if you can't cool the material?
No,
the blade, sorry.
The coolant is always generally present during the cutting process, but the problem with coolant is it's mixed with water. So you've got 10% coolant, say, 90% water. And what'll happen is if they're not regularly checking the coolant level, then bacteria can start to grow. So in our coolant, for example, if it drops below, I think, 3-4%, bacteria starts to grow. And that's where it becomes a health and safety issue. And health and safety are clamping down on it quite a lot now, where people are having to take samples, incubate it, check what bacteria is growing in it, and then if there's an issue, you're emptying that sump out, you're taking the whole lot out. Because if that goes on somebody's skin and they start to get skin irritation or skin rashes, or if somehow they ingest it, you know what some operators like, they put the cup of tea on the side and it splashes into the tea, it's not good for you. And they are clamping down it. And there's a lot of people now.
Not good.
Not good, boy. Love a bit of coolant in coffee.
I've just tried Dan's coffee.
I know, it was all right, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's why it tastes now.
That's it, yeah.
10% coolant. But yes, that's the thing then now.
Yeah, massively. Yeah. There's a lot of people
taking a quite a stern look at it, and they have done over the last 18 months, to be fair. I mean, the biggest cause of dermatitis especially within engineering companies and that line, people are reporting more dermatitis than ever. And I know that because I've got it myself. And that's through coolant. So
yeah, it's a hot topic at the minute. Yeah.
They are being quite, and when it comes down to 14,001 and things like that, I know that they are asking for more paperwork and more legislation to be added on to what they're already doing. Gone are the days where it just was, like I say, was forgot about. They are actually now put it on the ISO and looking at it from an auditing point of view.
One of the things that often falls hand in hand with health and safety, and I kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, but not specific about health and safety, is you end up having to spend money. And I mean money because some of the older equipment which works great, can't be transitioned to the new health and safety standards. It might be that you can't change, the sump that you're talking about with your coolant. That might be more difficult, or you can't have the same guards, or some devices don't work.
Yeah, it's like Lola's changed massively. When they put a Lola report in, it has to meet Lola regs, so it has to have safety guards and things like that. So a lot of companies are, rather than investing money into new machinery, they're just investing money into safety guards and making sure that the Lola agreement is being kept up to standard, so to speak. We had some older machines that failed the Lola examinations, so we had to put some guards around and make them safety, put a stop button on or a dump button and things like that, just to meet them regulations. So a lot of companies have done that.
And if you've noticed that then there's been an uplift in people buying new, because they're like, you know what, rather than fanning around upwardly, trying to get a bit more out of these machines, we'll just buy new stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed a lot of capex going in for a lot of machinery. Customers I've got that I have had over the last 5 years have definitely invested more. People, how many people use their COVID money to buy a new kit? But on the other flip side of it is you've got this massive lead time now for machines. You're looking at sometimes in the region of 20, 24 months where machines not out there. So what people are doing is they're investing, or they're basically servicing their machine better, or they're spending more money on making sure it's right.
So the seconds market's bigger.
It was.
It was, but then what happened was no second-hand machines around. Whatever second-hand machines were available and around got snapped up.
But like cars, really. Used cars.
The other thing is what we've seen, and something that pleased us in the temp to perm that since we set up, we do all recruitment needs now come to ground.
I was going to say, did you crowbar that in?
Not just permanent, we also have a temp to perm division with our divisional manager Stuart Andrews. There's a lot of people been applying who are females for operational roles at all levels, which has been amazing. And to the fact that we're obviously making placements of women in industry. Now, this kind of, I suppose rightly or wrongly, surprised me, because I never put that type of skill set with women, which is obviously wrong. I never thought about it. But obviously what I've seen working in big distribution companies across the UK is you see very little female operatives in industry. And we've placed, several now. And obviously that's pleasing for us to see. But are you seeing companies being more diverse over the people on the shop floors and just overall in the industry, in fact?
I'd say yes, definitely. There seems to be a lot more women working on shop floors now, which is always encouraging to see. When I was on a shop floor 15 years ago, it was all men. There wasn't hardly any women in sight. But then the culture within the shop floor as well, eventually there was a lady who worked in the stores area, but she had to mingle with the men, and they didn't treat her very nice. In the end she left because of that. And I think everything that's 15 years on has now changed. People want women to be encouraged to come on the shop floor because they've probably got a different skill set to what men have, and they can pick up on things that men don't see. And I think it's really encouraging. I'm seeing a lot more women on shop floors now, definitely.
Good. You're the same, Dan?
Yeah, no, definitely. It's one of the best operators I've met, female. I'll not give her a shout out because she'll get all embarrassed and probably tell me off. But no, definitely.
Don't worry, she won't listen to you, mate.
She probably won't listen to the podcast, but let's not risk it, eh? But no, she's, I think the attention to detail, I'm just talking about this one situation, their attention to detail, because on a saw machine, they're cutting vast amount of diameters, vast amount of different sizes and so on and so on. But her attention to details was amazing. And she, like I say, she's one of the best saw operators that I know in the industry. And she definitely won't struggle getting another job somewhere else. But yeah, it's definitely... I'll send you details.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Mike's pins out.
Please don't, mate. GDR compliant now as well.
The Metal Guys Talk Business podcast is brought to you by Compton Group, a recruitment agency operating in the metal, manufacturing and engineering sectors. With a large, engaged network of candidates and clients, we help businesses make great hires in sales, operational, technical, quality and managerial roles, as well as assisting people in their careers by matching their unique skills and aspirations to businesses that are hiring. Having worked with more than 200 niche businesses since 2019, Compton Group have become the go-to recruitment partner for many of our industry's leading names. So talk to us about your next career move, or let us work with you on your business's next hire. Compton Group, powering employment in the metal, manufacturing and engineering sectors. Lead times. we mentioned, or you guys mentioned, that someone had jumped out. There's a couple of companies that have come out of the marketplace. Lead times have been affected and gone out typically in the sector because there's been so much demand. How have you found it in your sector? Because again, I guess this opportunity that presented itself, how have you managed to keep up with the demand? Because demand has been just a joke.
We haven't.
No, we are.
We have. It's been difficult. What happened was these two competitors have came out UK market, European market, and left a £29 million void. Yeah. Nice. So yeah, brilliant. So our turnover is 5.5 to £6 million. So that's a big void to fill. And it happened overnight. It literally, we was completely unaware that this would happen. And overnight it was announced. And the next day people started to panic. There is still a set amount of people that's not panicking yet, and if they ought to, because that source and that line is going to stop pretty quick. If not already, yeah. The communication's gone, so there's no communication now out there within the UK or Europe, so that's gone. And I think they're shutting the system, or they're shutting the processor systems down within the next, or they shut it down already? Yeah. End of the year. So the simple answer to that, and I know Joe will want to say something as well, as we're looking at forecasts now. Gone are the days where we just add stock, keep adding stock. Because we're a manufacturer, we can just turn around and go, we've gone from £1 million worth of stock to £3 million worth of stock, because it's not frowned upon. As long as we've got the forecast for it, we can sell it, we'll sell it. Our biggest thing is obviously lead time, so we've got to think about that. But the biggest thing is forecasting what we're going to do next year. And these are why we're encouraging customers now to say, look, this is what we need. There might be a time where we turn around and go, we can't do that. So you need to talk to us. So we're out there at the minute encouraging customers. And these customers have dealt with these people for many, many years and had a fantastic product, but it's gone. So if you need to contact us now.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, I remember doing a post about a year ago, 18 months ago, where we had £1 million worth of stock. So what we had to do is buy a load more stock in. And as I said, because we're owned by the manufacturers, we're able to maybe...
But did you not have £1 million when you posted? Is that what you had to buy more stock in?
We had £1 million worth of stock. And we forecast it and think, well, what's going to happen? Because the demand was going... There's like a curve where the demand was going up because people were turning the lights back on after COVID. So the demand went up, but then raw materials were still scarce. So people were panicking and buying more and more. So lead times at one point for circular saws was 40 weeks.
My God.
But what's happened is it's leveled off and people have gone, actually, we've got too much stock now. And the demand has dropped back down. It's now 8 weeks. 8 weeks.
Some of your sites, and the one of them I was filming at recently, it was like an advert for your business. Everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, we increased our stock level. So we went from £1 million and we've now got about £2 million worth of stock. What is nice is if somebody comes on board now, we can speak to Rungenich and Gelder and say, we need blades.
It's a good problem, mate. You know them problems you have. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah, it's not nice. It's a nice problem to have, isn't it? Literally we've got so many customers coming on and we're just trying to make sure we can...
Yeah, you find the best ones, yeah?
Yeah.
I'm not saying we didn't have stock issues, because we've had a few stock issues, but yeah, everyone has... and everyone will have going forward.
We had a few beers at 5:15 one night, you know what I mean? Should we just have a drink?
Yeah. No.
We got no stock. Yeah, loads of people in the same boat. But look, appreciate you both. I know this has been like the longest podcast to ever kind of get organised.
Yeah.
I think we started talking about it in 20...
Yeah. But it's just proves LinkedIn works. You got a podcast out of it, didn't you?
We got a podcast out of it, and it's I've said it before, it's a breath of fresh air on we have completely different businesses, but we kind of share the same attitude, and we're all driven in the same way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
I think you same age of us.
I love what you guys are doing with your podcast, your stuff on LinkedIn. It's trying to bring the metal industry together and also bring it into the 21st century.
Yeah, of course, 100%. And we've been doing it like 3.5 years, and Pete's finally got a new jacket.
I think he nicked it from a wedding.
Look how good
is it? When actually walked into that, honestly, the fact, can't believe it.
I had a pair of glasses, had a big scarf, and I looked to myself this morning. So this pod was recorded quite a while ago. We recorded this in early 2023. Obviously, some of the conversation in there is, again, it's after COVID, but both of us have spoken a lot about the lack of face-to-face BD that's being done. It was like something that kind of disappeared and hasn't really fully come back, or companies are starting to get people out face-to-face. So
I think it's just so expensive, isn't it, to have someone on the road? I think people have looked at it and thought, what actual value do we get out of it when we look at fully expensed company car,
fuel,
time
time out
hotels,
of the
expenses,
office,
everything. How value are those appointments? I think most companies have gone, unless it's really worth our while, we're not going out. I think where companies are struggling, where they're not getting enough people out, it's internal people or people in the business, should I say, is going, what do we class as worth our while? Are we just looking for £1 million accounts? Or we looking, do you know what I mean? And I don't think people are getting out enough, so it's just become where people have, I don't know if lazy is the right word, but it's almost, do I want to be driving all the way down there to see someone for the day? I've got so much going on, so it almost becomes pushed to the back.
What do you think about the online meetings? Because everyone's gone like Zoom, Skype. No one uses Skype anymore, do they? Love Skype. Google Meets, all of these kind of online platforms. Where's your, what do you think about sitting down in front of someone? As much as you've just said, like, people aren't doing it, where's the value? But what do you think is the value of being sat in front of someone and having a look?
Depends what it is for, isn't it? I mean, I don't go out very often at all. I mean, we've been doing this 5 years and I've probably done 15 visits, if that. Like, when I look at it, when I was on the road selling metal, I mean, there'd be days where I'd be out just because I felt it was obliged that I needed to be out. And I remember working for one company, it was almost, you had to be out 2 to 3 times a week. So it almost becomes, well, you're out 3 days a week, you come back in for 2, you've got to do your visit reports, you've got to start talking to going on, and then you've got to book a load of appointments for the following week. You almost become a farce. So there's somewhere in the middle, isn't there? I think kind of continually having people out on the road, I think you can just quickly just drum up the wrong stuff. People are just dropping off a brochure, not getting nothing, walking around the industrial estate. But if you're going out and having a proper meeting with someone you've identified as a user, then that's loads, because it's a different conversation. But I do think there can be a lot of times where business development managers are kind of having to be almost feel forced out, and they're trying to make up where they're going to go from one week to the next with no proper identification of what they're meant to be going for. Used to have like KPIs on visits per day, 5 a day. Well, it's like, well, how value are those meetings, aren't they? I think where KSOs win with the way they're doing it is they're like sales engineers, aren't they? So it can be going in, changing the saws, trying to make people's downtime reduced, trying to make the blade last longer so they get better cuts. It's a different reason for someone to be seen, isn't it? Where I think if you're going out and you're selling 3 or 4 sheet and 1050 sheet, it's, they can be quick, almost like almost like you're banging out a flyer. So it depends what's right for your business. But again, that comes back to a couple of podcasts ago, as we were talking about sales process. And I think a lot of times people do jobs, but they don't actually know what that actually is, what's expected of them. So they think they're doing a good job, but they're not. And it depends on what business you are in, isn't it? If you're in, say, nuclear or oil and gas, and you're going out and you're having 3 visits a week, and they're for top big contracts that they could be doing, really beneficial. But if you're selling commodity products and it's just price driven, then is it really worth it? Is that person sitting in front of someone really making the difference? Shot on the fence there.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah.
But yeah, cheers for tuning in. Thanks to the sponsors, Steel by TW Metals and ourselves, Compton Group. And we will see you all next Tuesday.